Good morning. Let's stand and pray for change. Our Father in heaven, so high, so beautiful, so noble, so far above what we can reach or think, so far beyond even our imagination, our greatest imagination cannot begin to grasp who you are. And I pray this morning, God, that you would help us with our human reaching, our human groping, our human trying to see some of what you are, high and lifted up, as your word says, far above, transcending. God, we do reach. Give us eyes to see spiritually. As your brother just shared, there's things we cannot know lest you reveal them. We cannot come lest you draw. And I pray you would gift us this morning with a mind that can be stretched and encouraged, loved by you and who you are and how you are. And we can find our place in your world, under your hand, in your care. Wonderful words. I pray that you would gift us with that this morning. Give me grace to share, to speak. Inspire all of us to be God-like with our station in life, with the responsibility you've given us, whatever age that we're sitting in, that we would be faithful to what you would have us do, to fulfill your plan on this earth for the individual gifting that you've given us. God, we do desire that, and we do ask you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. I will be continuing where I was last time. I did not finish, so I'm going back a little bit and then continuing from that. I read out of a book, The Knowledge of the Holy by Tozer. Dennis, I really appreciated your thoughts this morning. Very much blessed me. And my last message was titled The Problem of God, not the problem with God. There is no problem with God. There never will be a problem with God, nor has there ever been a problem with God. But from the human viewpoint, the problem of God. What do we as human beings, when we rightly think about Him, when we see Him and think about who He is and how He is, what does that mean for us then? What naturally follows? I'd just like to read one quick paragraph here on that. If I can find it, I didn't make notes. Okay, I'm not sure where it is, but basically what Tozer was saying, that were all the trouble of heaven and earth that has ever been and ever will be condensed, it still would not come close to man's problem of God. That God is, how He is, and who He is has to be reckoned with. So we, in our humanity, are here, obviously, on this earth. We had a generation before us. There will be generations after us. And time keeps moving on. We get a short term of the page like this. And then our children get a turn of the page like this. And then their children get a turn of the page like that. And it keeps going. And somewhere in the shuffle, we're back here. But I don't know who my grandparents were, great-grandparents. I don't know who my great-great-grandparents were. They just were. They're somewhere, no disrespect, but they're just humans, and they simply disappear, and God is. God is today, and in my great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren's life, God will be the I am. They can say God is. I don't know who my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was, but God is. So the very brief snapshot of time that we have here matters. What we do with that, we are passing. The Bible talks in language of the grass of the field withers and is burned up. Very, very consumable. And we, with our consumable lives, what is our place here? And I believe it can be a catastrophic loss to live and die without finding our place in God's world. To have one candle that burns for 70, 80, 90 years, and then the page turns, and that one life that we've been given, that one flame, that one candle, can be an utter, total, colossal waste. Waste, waste, waste. Even harm to what God has in mind. Or we can contribute, like streams and drops in the ocean, we can contribute to make some beautiful, almost unbelievable, in fact unbelievable, plan of God come to fruition. Our drop in this life can affect generations 4 or 5 deep forward if we're in the plan of God. Or we can simply live and die and do nothing with God's overarching plan. But with that comes an understanding of who God is. And again, my feeble human attempt will try to do that. It'll take a lot of grace to do that, being that we're so far removed. I have a new generation up here that I made. I am their creator. Last time I was here 2 months ago, we had Bill and Bob. This is now a much more enlightened generation. They're much more wise. They're much more advanced than their forefathers. The forefathers were many generations ago. And these two are far more enlightened, far more wise, far more advanced, far superior than their generation. They're stronger. They're just advanced. So these two are here because Bill and Bob, their great-great-great-great-grandfathers, figured out that I don't exist. These two now, based on that information, have built their life forward, and they've proven beyond a doubt that I don't exist. And furthermore, if I did, there's many bad words that they're using to describe me. But yes, I don't exist to these two things that I made. I'm not here. I have nothing to do with their life. I have no say in their life, and they chart their own destiny. So Tim and Tom here are the advanced version, the new and improved of Bill and Bob last time. And last time, Bob, I think it was, that was far superior to Bill because he was much stronger. He had the top arm piece was darker, and he was much, much more handsome. Now, Tim over here is much stronger than Tom, and he's far superior. He's much, much better than him, and he's looking down on him. He's just way better. So leave them up as an example here. Proverbs 9:10, I shared last time, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So the absolute beginning of anything that we can know, anything that we can understand, has to be through the filter, through the lens, through the viewpoint of God is. That is the absolute start to everything. God is. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. Hence Tozer's title of the book, The Knowledge of the Holy. Again, be reading from that. So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. It has to start from there. If you're beginning from any other premise, it's wrong. It just is. And I'd like to talk about, I need my phone. If somebody, Ellis, can you find it? Give me a screenshot. I'd like to talk about different words: faith, reality, truth, knowledge. They all tie into the same root. Thank you. Faith, reality, truth, knowledge, they tie into the same root. They come from the same place. They speak about the same thing. They factor into an unseen God. I have a question here from the Berean Call. That is a, what's the word? An apologetics ministry, discernment ministry maybe. I'd just like to read a bit of a question that somebody wrote in to them quite a while ago. The question asked this: I can see that it makes no sense and it would be very dangerous to believe in something simply because some church or religious leader says I must do so. So I think this was a student. I'll read it again. I can see that it makes no sense and would be very dangerous to believe something simply because some church or religious leader says I must do so. And maybe young people, you find yourself there, I don't know. And then the person goes on to say, clearly there must be some basis for believing. We don't want to just think things up and run with them. If somebody said something, I can't just take that and whoosh off I go and base my life on it. So one is an idea that you take just because it's been given. And then he's saying, surely there must be basis for believing. And then the person says, I'm confused because it wouldn't seem to be faith then. So in other words, if you've got evidence for it, then it's not faith anymore. And if there's no evidence, then we're simply believing an idea that can change, like the wind, whoosh this way and whoosh that way. So if there's evidence, faith is canceled, then it's not faith anymore. It's not, you're seeing it, right? What's the pulpit is here. It's evident. I'm not needing to have faith anymore. So the person was confused by the concept. Either it's a leap of faith, like blind faith, is what they're thinking, or there's evidence and then the faith is canceled and it's null and void. So either way is nonsense, and the person was wondering, what do I do with that? And if you view faith wrongly, then yes, that is a valid question. And I'll get the response later. So faith, reality, truth, knowledge, again, they go to a common source. How do we know him? How do we know God? How do we know who he is truly? Do we just believe, quote unquote, just believe? Is Christianity rational? Is Christianity rational, or is it something that it just is, and everybody just has to accept it? And university people or the person on the street, when you give them the elements of Christianity, is it just an idea that you bought and they are not? How does this work? Is Christianity rational? Is faith rational? Is faith rational, or is it ideas that people base their life on and then it becomes true as you go kind of thing? What is faith? Is faith rational? Is faith logical? Is faith logical? And I'll be answering those things as we go. I'm hoping to unravel them as we go through. There's many, many voices in this world. Much noise. Can be very confusing. Some of the confusion comes from the Christian world. Unfortunately, it's just truths that have error mixed in and that makes it nonsense. Some people would say we believe the Bible but not the miracles. So they believe the good teaching of the Bible. Jesus was a good person. Obviously, he was very unselfish. He offered himself up, probably. But the miracles, Old Testament stuff, it kind of corresponds with history because they have archaeological digs that dig up stuff that matches completely. The Dead Sea Scrolls, it's hard to argue with that, but there's really, the miracles are, some people just put it on the shelf and just leave it there. We'll just take the story generally, the life of Christ, most of it, Sermon on the Mount, not really. So they kind of do that with it. There's much noise. I'm not talking about the atheist and the unbeliever. There's much noise about Christianity. So again, thinking of that in our human viewpoint and looking at Tom and Tim here who don't believe in their creator at this point, we have to view God like that. So God has to be completely sure and there, and everything else then is subjective, including our world, our opinions, what we see is not sure. Can be very easily misread at minimum. Think of it this way. There's a daycare. There's 25 3-year-olds there. And there's one chap there who's been there 2 years. He's wise. He's 5. And he deems himself in charge because he knows when lunchtime is. He knows where to sit. He knows everything about the daycare. And he's decided that he's in charge of all the little kids because they're just kids. They're 3. And he's 5. And he's grown up. And he's convinced all of them, the entire 25 of them, or the other 24, that he's completely in charge. I know everything there is to know here, and it's just about true. And he's completely in charge. And in their 3-year-old minds, this wise, enlightened 5-year-old actually is, this guy's got it. He knows way more than we do. He knows everything. We know nothing. We don't even know where the lunchroom is, never mind what the time is or what we do there. And this 5-year-old is in charge. And there's a 38-year-old overseer who's been there for 15 years, who's just looking at that. And we could call this situation prideful. Yes, it is. We could call it rebellious. Kind of. We can call it narrow-minded, small-minded maybe. It is that. We can call it conceited. It is that. We can call it ignorant. It is that. We can call it unkind. It is that. We can call it out of order. It is that. We can call it cute. Some might. I'm not sure. They all apply, like those words fit the situation of the 5-year-old that's in charge and the 38-year-old calmly looking at the situation. All those words apply. Prideful, rebellious, narrow-minded, conceited, ignorant, unkind, out of order, cute. You could apply those words, but for sake of illustration, what I'm trying to say is that situation is simply fundamentally wrong, and I don't mean sinfully wrong. It's just incorrect. And so I don't want to think of that situation with the daycare as being prideful. I don't want to think it as being rebellious. It's incorrect. It is false information. The 5-year-old is not in charge. So pride, all those words aside, it is simply wrong on that level, as in not true. And all the rest of it is what it is, that he might need to be talked to if he defies the 38-year-old, and so on. And in a way, man's rebellion, when they deem themselves prideful and lifted up before God, before a God who made them, Tim and Tom here, I call them the wrong names, and they're offended at me for doing that. So Tim and Tom here, in dismissing me, you could call that rebellion and all that stuff, but it's fundamentally simply incorrect. Am I challenged by that? Not a whit. What they think of me is like, pooty patty poo. What does it matter to me what you think? And if the entire creation from Adam till the last man born defies God and rebels against God, it doesn't do anything to his credibility, to his personhood, to who he is. He's not threatened. He's not challenged. He's not bothered. Now, rebellion is bothersome, but as far as the 38-year-old being pressured by the 5-year-old, she just isn't. And when man rebels against God, you can put many words on it that has many different flavors and many different avenues that you could label it, but the fundamental is it's simply wrong information. It is just not true that man can challenge God or dismiss him or deem him not valid. It's simply wrong information. It's not true. It's not reality. And so keep that point up. I'm getting to another one that'll layer on that. So while it is all the other words, the main point is simply incorrect. Anything past that, any planning, any pecking order, any pride, leveling, anything, if you start at the wrong point, it's just wrong. It's false information, and it will not work out. So not thinking of it morally, but simply as factually. So God has been called egotistical. People seem to enjoy doing that. University people, wise people writing books, they call God all sorts of nasty names. Egotistical, prideful, he's got a glory vacuum, like many stupid things that people put on God's account. Is God egotistical? Have you ever wondered why God says glory is mine? And why God does not allow man any glory? Like it feels awful to say that, but sometimes we can think that way. Why is that? So if we put it back to the 5-year-old, why does the 5-year-old could wonder, why do you have to be in charge? Why can't I be in charge? What is with this dominating, power-hungry, lording attitude that you have? The 5-year-old can think that, and the 38-year-old can simply respond, because the fact is, I am in charge, and it has nothing to do with being power-hungry. It simply is. I deal with the bus times, I deal with the temperature, I deal with making sure the corners aren't sharp for your heads when you hit them, I deal with your scheduling, I deal with the payment. I'm in charge. That's just factual. So for me to say that you can be in charge, it would simply be wrong. I couldn't do that even if I wanted to, because the 30-year-old is in charge. And all the rebellion, all the stiff-necked, all the whining, that's a separate issue. The facts are what they are. And when God says all glory is mine, he couldn't do or be anything else, because he is in the place that he is, and it cannot be anything else, and it's the only correct information that is. Anything that comes at that is a lie, and it is wrong. We have to understand that deeply. Glory belongs to God. And when we in our humanity, like these guys, want to bond ourselves up because we have this hair, or this intellect, or this family, or this car, we're vacuuming glory when glory is not meant to be given to us. All glory is God's. And when man tries to suction it and vacuum it and bring it to you, we have majorly misunderstood God completely. So a humble man is not oh, that's good that he's humble. It doesn't work like that. A humble man is in his place. A prideful man is out of place. It is not in man's, and generally, universe-wide, centuries-wide, a prideful man is out of his place, a humble man is in his place. It's God's order. And I'd like to read some things in a few minutes here about that, but I'd like to go to Psalm 24 first. If you have your Bible, go there. I'll read the whole thing. Psalm 24. And making the point that it's not a matter of ego or pride. It's simply what is. It's a fact. It's true. It's reality. So Psalm 24. There's many that I could have picked. I'm not even sure why I went here, but it seemed to fit. The earth is the Lord's. I wish we could digest this information. So when I sat on this for a few hours and just thought and tried to probe these things. So in reading them here, I understand it's hard to get beyond the surface scratch, but let's try to stretch our mind and our brain in this way. The earth is the Lord's, so thinking of the entire planet and everything that is on it, every uranium atom, every giraffe ear, every proverbial grain of sand, it's all God's. The fullness thereof, everything on this earth is His, from the bottom to the top, core to the sky. Is the fullness of the world is God's, and they that dwell therein, and then all of mankind. What's in this one verse is far beyond our grasping. For He hath founded it upon the seas, so He made the earth, He founded it, created it, designed it. Cars wear out after about 10 years. They're reasonably well designed in our standard, but God's world for centuries and millennia keeps on ticking just the way it was supposed to. The air gets cleaned. Human beings continue basically like they have been, self-sustaining, self-propagating. The systems that God put in place work. They're tremendously well designed. So He founded upon the seas, He established upon the floods. Who shall ascend to the hill of the Lord? Who shall stand in His holy place? He's far, far above. And it gives some moral things here. He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, God allows for people to come, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. God lives in truth. He lives in His place, and we live in our place. We're not lifted up. A humble man can come before God. A proudful man resists. God resists. And this language is in here. It's deep language. He shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from the Lord of his salvation. This is the generation of them that seek Him, that seek His face, O Jacob. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? So the King of glory, there is no glory but His. There is no sharing it. The Lord is strong and mighty, and the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, even lift them up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. So what is this obsession with glory? Is God egotistical? Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. So King of glory means there will be no other. A king in a country, there's no higher than the king of a country. The king of anything would be the top spot. So the King of glory just has everything underneath. So quick reading in the book here that I mentioned earlier, Psalm 39, page 39. Let me, I read this last time, but I'll do some again here. So the problem of why God created the universe still troubles thinking men. Like, why did God make all of this universe, us, all the people that have been, everything? Why did He make it? If we cannot know why, we can at least know that He did not bring His worlds into being to meet some unfulfilled need in Himself, as a man might build a house. So a man builds a house because he's cold. He wants shelter. So God didn't make the world on that basis. There was no need of God that I need so-and-so. I need to do so-and-so. He doesn't have that. That isn't God. There's no unfulfilled need that God had to make the world. As a man might build a house to shelter him against winter or cold, or men plant fields to provide corn, to provide food. God doesn't do that. He didn't make the worlds on that basis. The word necessary is wholly foreign to God. So God didn't make the worlds because they were necessary. We don't know why He made the world. But God has no need Since he is being supreme over all, it follows that God cannot be elevated. Nothing is above him. Nothing is beyond him. Any motion in his direction, anything towards God is upward. Everything that moves towards God will always be upward. Something moving towards God will never be lower. It's always up. Any motion in his direction is elevation. For the creature, away from him, and away from God is descent. If you move away from God, you're descending. If you move towards God, you're being lifted up. Whether that's in character, in morals, in attitude. If you move towards God, you're moving up. Grander, nobler, bigger, more beautiful. So God holds his position out of himself and by leave of no one. No one can promote him, so no one can degrade him. It is written that he holds all things by the word of his power. How can he be raised or supported by things that he upholds? So there's nothing propping God up. God is not propped by something that he upholds. Colossians, I'll get to later, says he made all things, he sustains all things. So God is completely independent, completely self-sufficient. I think I'll leave the rest for sake of time again. So Romans 8, just changing direction here a little bit. Romans 1. I read that last time, but I didn't quite say what I wanted to. So Romans 1, 18, something we're familiar with. And again, there's a lot in this verse. Verse says, I guess. Romans 1, 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness, when things are not according to God's ways, and unrighteousness. God is righteous. His ways are beautiful. They're perfect. They're unblemished. They're uncorrupted. So when things are not godlike, they are ungodly and unrighteous. When men corrupt God's goodness and his order and his plan. So his anger is against those. His wrath is against those. And then it says in 19, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath showed it unto them. So for the person that is born on this earth, there are signposts and indicators that there is a God. They just are. For every human being alive, there are signs and indicators that there is a God. In verse 20, the invisible things of him from the world are clearly seen from creation, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power. And words like eternal power, I wish we could even come to begin to understand that word, those words like that. His eternal power and Godhead. I'd like to try to unpack that somewhat. So the invisible things, how can something be an invisible thing? Have you ever thought of that? How is a thing, because things we see, right? What is an invisible thing? Can somebody think of an invisible thing? Maybe air, but he's saying they should see them. What are they seeing? What are people supposed to see? What invisible things are people being faulted, if I can say it that way, for not seeing? Isn't that a contradiction? Why are people being faulted for not seeing invisible things? What are they supposed to notice? Okay. That's a very good question. What invisible things are they supposed to be seeing that they're not seeing or that they're willfully ignoring? Let's look at something here. So I'll read again here. It's a fairly long passage, but let's do that. So power belongs unto God, says the psalmist, and Paul the apostle declares that nature itself gives evidence of the eternal power of the Godhead in Romans 1:20, so where I was reading. So from this knowledge, we reason to the omnipotence, all power of God in this way. God has power. We understand that. Since God is infinite, completely unending in any direction, whatever he has must be without limit. So let's try and do this. So God has power. Its power is in God, and God stretches as far as this way as can possibly be, that way, up, down, this way, that way. God stretches unlimited in every direction. So power isn't a little thing inside of him like a heart, and then he stretches beyond the power. The power is part of who God is, and that power then is with him as far as God can go, if we can say it that way. It's not like an apple in a box. It's more like the air in the apple box. As big as the box is, that's how big the air would be in the box. So God has power ultimately because he is infinite. And whatever God has must be without limit. Therefore, God has limitless power. He is omnipotent, omnipotent. We see further that God, the self-existent creator, is the source of all power. There's many passages that say that. He's the source of all power that there is. And since a source must be at least equal to anything that emanates from it, so whatever comes out of something, car's power, a car will put out a proportional amount of power to what the car has. The sun puts out a proportional amount of power to what the sun has. My arm puts out a proportional amount of power to what my arm has, is what he's saying here. But that's not God. God has delegated power to his creatures, changing a little bit here. So God has given us power, like my arm moves, again, the sun. So God has delegated power to his creatures. Somehow there's power in our world, but being self-sufficient, he cannot relinquish anything out of his perfection, power being one of them. So the power that's here is still God's power because he's not going to meter it out so it's gone from him. I'm not sure if you're following. So the power that God has, he loans it, let's say it that way. He doesn't give it away so it's gone from him. He gives you a measure that's yours to use as well, but though it's still with him. He cannot relinquish anything of his perfections, and power being one of them. He has never surrendered at least one iota of his power. He gives, but he does not give away. That's the key here. So as far as power goes, God gives, but he does not give away. So can he take power back from people? Can he take authority back from people? Can he take anything? Anything that is moving and alive and being, every blade of grass, God lends to it. All that he gives remains his own and returns to him again. Forever he must remain what he has forever been, the Lord God omnipotent. I find that such a grand thought. The Lord gives or loans power. He doesn't relinquish it. He gives, but he does not give away. Power and everything that God is, he allows us to work in this world with it, but it's still all his. It's not diminished from him. It's not absent from him. So the reason I'm saying this is, as we look around in the world that we're in, I'd like to talk about the laws of nature. So we live in a society that has dismissed God. He's gone in their mind. The world is empty and void, but yet they're doing scientific studies tomorrow morning at all the universities, all the research stations. They're doing studies about the world that we're in. Cancer research, vehicle technology, fuel mileage, battery capacity. That research is ongoing, like always. Man has been learning and has become tremendously wise. So as man does this research, what are they basing it on? What are they researching? They're looking for patterns. They're looking for ways of operation. When you put this atom or this molecule together, what happens? How do we make a better battery? They're simply taking sure things that always will be, combining them and getting a very predictable result. If we figure out the proportion to make a better battery, we can do it again. We take more of this material, more of that, we put it together in the same proportion, in the same container, and it'll do the same thing that the experiment did. It's marvelous. And furthermore, in 10 years, when battery technology has improved even more, they'll take this information, what we've discovered, and they'll make a better one. And all they're doing is going off of what? The laws of nature, right? We're following? So they're operating on, they're depending on, they're studying the laws of nature in all the research. Every day, all day, they're studying the laws of nature. So what are these laws of nature? And I do have a point with all this. It's a bit long, but follow. So law has two meanings. One is an external rule enforced by authority. We don't run in school. We are kind to each other. There's laws that govern us morally, but there's also laws like predictable outcomes. So the word also is used, I'll just quote here, the word also is used to denote the uniform way things act in the universe. So laws of physics, thermodynamics, I can't think of any right now, my mind's blank, but there are certain laws that just are. And as you engage with them, they'll repeat and be consistent forever, basically. As long as man has been, the things haven't changed. Like the pull of gravity, the degree to what it is at a certain height, at a certain density, and certain air pressure. Like there's things that affect different things. The speed of light, can light be bent? Those things are all laws. They're just, we expect them to be that way. But what are we looking at when we're looking at that? Is that Mother Nature? What is it that we're looking at? When we see, the word is used to denote the uniform way things act in the universe, but this is actually wrong. There are no, qualified it. There are no laws of nature. It is simply, what we see in nature is simply the paths God's power and wisdom take through creation. So scrub the laws of nature part from our mind because we're so used to thinking in that way, and let's put a new one in that is actually correct. What we're seeing is, what we see in nature is simply the paths of God's power, atoms, subatomic particles, nuclear, electricity, our body regenerating. It is all simply God's power and wisdom through creation that He made, that He implemented, that He designed, and said we need this to last 6, 7, 10,000 years, and we'll design it in such a way that it will continue with the same force, velocity, predictability, pattern, sequence. It'll just simply be there. And God designed the world that this package works in a complete engineered system as long as God wants it to. And when God is finished with it, He can go like a light switch and go, all done. And the entire thing, when God decides that this whole ball of activity on the planet is done, He can simply switch it off again, and all that power that is the laws of nature, God is there moving with it. He could kill the entire planet with a flick because it's His power in everything. It's all God moving. So going back, this is a long point. What are they supposed to be looking at in Romans when it says the invisible things of Him from creation of the world are clearly seen? What are they supposed to be looking at? We take for granted the laws of nature and forget that it is God working. It's God's world. He made it. He's here. He is in everything. It isn't the laws of nature just spinning out like a wound-up Swiss clock. That's not what it is. This world, you, me, everything is God at work here, right here. The world is not empty of God. The world is completely, thoroughly full of God. End to end, top to bottom, everything has God's power in it, sustaining it, making it go, keeping it, design, wisdom. It is all God. So when somebody says that God doesn't exist, or I don't exist by these two guys, am I threatened? No. When I take them off of here and take them back to my chair, do they have a say in that? Zero. If their end is finished and I decide that I'm done with them for illustration's sake like last time, I'll take their generation away again, I'll undo them, and they'll be done. They'll have fulfilled their purpose. Will it affect me? Not much. I used them, I needed them. And it's a breakdown because God is love and God wants fellowship. So that part it's a bit cold for me to them and me using them as tools, but it breaks down and God isn't like that. But as far as they're standing up to me or they declaring that I don't exist or they're independent or that they should get glory because I'm egotistical, it is just stupid. It is just wrong. And when man decides that God is egotistical, it is just, like I said before, like the 3-year-old, it's not that it's prideful, rebellious. It is all of that, but it is simply wrong information. All the glory is God's glory. You can't take any of it. It's His. He made us to be fellowshipping with Him, to love Him, to be in His image. I'll get to that in a bit. So I don't feel like I am done with this, but just I kind of have to move on. So the invisible things of Him are clearly seen for those that want to, for those that actually can undo the deception that we've been programmed into, to put that old thinking aside and go into God's world and look at it from his viewpoint, then it becomes all of a sudden alive and real and beautiful. And that's the world God wants us to live in. He made it for us. He's here. So when we just dismiss him and take him out and all we have is gravity and light and wind and trees, and it's nice nature. It does something to us when we hear the water lapping. It is nice, but that's not what God had in mind. God is in everything, sustaining everything. So there aren't the laws of nature we're seeing. It's simply God at work in everything all the time. I love that. We are seeing very simply God at work with his infinite power in everything all the time. I love it. So in Colossians 1:16 as well, it says God made the worlds like Psalms did, sustains everything and keeps everything. God is here. And Tozer goes on to say here, for sake of time, that other generations saw the world as full. We see the world as empty. When I say we, collectively, the planet, generally. So they had a full world full of God. We have an empty world void of God. But it's not the case. We've just been deprogrammed the wrong way. God is not hidden, but our eyes can be darkened. Our minds can be corrupted and deceived. Our ears can be closed. But for those that want to see, for those that should see, for those that are responsible to see, we can't give in to deceptive, worldly, carnal, rebellious thinking. It's God's world. He's all power. He sustains it. So in Hebrews 11:3, I went there last time, but I didn't quite do what I wanted either. So that's why I'm touching back. So Hebrews 11. And the reason I want to look at this, it's common thinking in our day that we can easily fall prey to. We have markers. I'd like to look at this verse here. Hebrews 11:3. Okay. I'll look at verse 1 first. I've done this before, so those that see it follow along again. Hopefully it's not old. Okay, so Hebrews 11:3. Have you ever told a story and the person listening is listening but they're not listening? So you might say, I was on the city bus today and I saw the most incredible thing. Oh, it was awful. And the person next to you goes, And you're like, there was this guy waiting for the bus next to me, and this other chap, he looked pretty scruffy. He came up behind him sneaking like a cat. And the person that you're talking to says, I had a cat once. And you just know they're not listening. So they're listening, but they're not listening at all. And you're like, you don't want the story, obviously. So you cancel the story, and the person's happy that you had a cat and missed your fantastic adventure. And sometimes when I see plaques on the wall about Hebrews 11, I sometimes get that impression when I see things that what people say faith is on their wall, and it's cute, but it's not true at all. It's not at all what this is saying. Faith is something, and it's just wrong. And I have a bit of a literal brain, so I tend to do that more easily. But I'd like to look at this again from what I believe it's saying. So faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And it can be a bit of a brain tangle, but I think it's simple. So, and again, I've done this before, but let's do that. So the verse says faith is something, right? So faith is substance and evidence. If you break that thing down, so substance and evidence. And again, I do have a point with this. I'm going somewhere. Come along. So faith is substance and faith is evidence. So how does that work? So when people go to a crime scene and they see bullet casings and skid marks and blood stains, is that faith? No. It gives a qualifier. Faith is substance, things. Things. Faith is substance. But of what? So if things hoped for, let's go down here a bit. So hope for or to come, and evidence of what? And then things unseen. Is that messy, or can you see that? So faith is this and this, but paired with that and that. So when you have something invisible, whoops, I was going to do invisible, that wouldn't be correct. So invisible things and evidence of it, something tangible, If these two come together, then you have faith. So if there's an element of things not seen, plus something you can see, but is driven by the unseen one, those two together equals faith. It's like an epoxy or a body filler. Body filler by itself comes in a tub. It stays soft for years. It's kind of like toothpaste, but when you add 2 drops of hardener to it, this blue stuff or red stuff, and you put it together, you've got about 5 minutes before it's a clicking plastic. So in 5 minutes, those two things react and become completely something different. So this and this together equals that. This isn't faith, and this isn't faith, but this and this together in one union or marriage equals faith. And as you look at Hebrews, all of these illustrations that Hebrews gives, so let's do a few. By faith, Noah, so the unseen was God told him it was going to rain. That's the unseen part. So God from heaven, somehow, I don't know how he did, I'm always fascinated, how did God communicate with them? It will rain, build a boat, here are the dimensions. How did that happen? I would have loved to see that. Is it paper? Is it woo, you just feel it? How did that happen? So anyways, the unseen part is God said it was going to rain. It doesn't matter that it's never rained. It doesn't matter that it's not possible to fill the earth with water. It has nothing to do with it. God said it. So that's what Noah was operating on, the unseen. And the visible part was he was building a boat for 120 years. Bang, 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 saw, bang, 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 saw by hand. And carting it across the miles wherever they got their trees from. That was the visible, but driven by the invisible. And all of these examples have that. They have an invisible, God said it, and then a practical outworking that people could physically see. All of these examples follow that pattern. Meaning, again, long point here, this one, through faith we understand that the worlds are framed by the word of God. So the same pattern has to apply to this one, because if that's what faith is, there's an unseen element and a seen element that's obvious. It was obvious that Noah was building a boat. It was obvious that Abraham was sacrificing his son. You could easily comprehend that and get what's going on. But you couldn't see God telling Abraham, you need to do this. And God believed him, or Abraham believed him. So as we go through the examples, unseen things that pushes it or that you're going towards, it's something that you're hoping for, or something to come, or something unseen with real outworking. And when James says that faith that has no works is dead, he's correct. You need to have an outworking of the unseen. God is alive in me, and therefore my life is dictated so and so. It's perfect faith. There's no contradiction whatsoever between James and Hebrews, none. So James is saying without this one, and you're just hoping or dreaming maybe, if it's not working itself out, then it's not true faith. It just isn't. It's not the correct definition. So going back again, here, through faith we understand the worlds were framed by the word of God. So what is he saying? How is this faith? The unseen is we weren't there when God made the world. I wasn't, you weren't, Adam wasn't, nobody was there when God made the world. So that's the unseen part, but the thing that we can clearly see, Abraham raising his knife, Noah building the boat, all of these examples, we see the world here. That's the visible part, that's the obvious part. So when we're arguing with evolutionists or a carnal man that the world has a designer, then again, like last time, we're kind of giving into a lie already. We shouldn't even enter that realm. It's very, very, very obvious to any thinking person that this is designed, period. And anytime we begin to debate, I think of it this way. If somebody comes to you and says, the moon is made of green cheese, okay, where do we start? And you kind of have to back up a bit till you have common ground. Well, how do we do this? Cheese isn't stable enough to be in orbit, and the color doesn't match the color green if we put the two plates together because the moon isn't green. Like at a certain point, you're arguing nonsense. And in arguing that this world has no designer, you're kind of doing that. You're giving ground where you kind of have to because that's where they are, but it's very hard to do if they're not in reality, if you know what I'm saying. The world is designed, period. You cannot escape that fact. And the more research is being done, the more that fact becomes evident. The amount of colors the eye can see, the amount of integration between cells, it's all completely connected. Every system in your body completely dependent and interwoven with the other one. It is obviously designed. The planet cleaning itself continually, water, stream, air, It's pristine as far as what's not been corrupted. But as far as God made it, it's almost unbelievably consistent. The air stays the same, the temperature stays the same, the seasons are predictable. It is a very, very well designed, carefully balanced thing. So when we start arguing that the world was not made, then we're giving into a lie already. We shouldn't, in our mind, for sure. Again, when you're talking to somebody, you kind of have to backtrack a bit and talk about whether the moon, whether cheese could be in orbit or not. Like, you have to kind of begin where they are. But in our mind, it has to be clear. God is here. God is sustaining everything. So, having said that, God is not hidden. God is not, we're able to see him. So I'll just move forward here. So is faith rational? Just to continue on the theme here. Is faith rational? Do we just believe? Is it blind faith? How do we as Christians view faith? How do we view God said? How do we view God wants this? Do we just believe? We take an idea and run with it, and then it becomes true, like we think that if we give our life to God and get to heaven, that, yeah, it'll work out? Or is it an absolute fact that we're basing everything on it? There's a difference there. So God's world is very, very real. So is faith rational? Faith is rational in that, yes, it is. Faith is rational in that what you put your faith on, how can I put this? If your faith is in God and what he said and what he revealed, then that is the truest, most condensed, most precise, most accurate information that could possibly be in the entire universe. Because God is, God said. He cannot change, he cannot lie, he cannot be different. So if you're going on something that God said according to his word, that is condensed, powerful, deep, heavy truth, unmovable. So if your faith is in that way, so when Abraham and if Noah, was Noah's faith rational? God said it will rain, the world will be covered with water, you need to prepare. Was that rational? Yes, because it happened. So it was an absolute fact that Noah was depending on, right? Complete truth. Noah had to act on it. And he did for 120 years because it was absolute fact. So was his faith rational? Yes, because he was depending on God to be true. Will God be true? Absolutely. So is faith rational? If it's based on God, then yes. Faith is 100% rational. The thing is, though, will faith act in ways that we as human beings expect or want to see? Did the people around him think his faith was rational? Well, their viewpoint wasn't there. They thought it's never rained, the earth can't be covered with water, there isn't a God, da-da-da-da. So Noah, you're crazy, mocked him. Was Noah's faith rational? In his mind, Noah had the truth. He walked in it. The people around him, it was irrational to them. So my point is, when our faith is on God, then faith is completely rational and the only thing to do and the only thing to bank on. So if faith rational, is faith sensible? Always, if based on God. Now, if you're doing something different, is the bridge going to hold me, and you kind of put faith in that thing, there's man involved and it breaks down. But faith in God's ways, God's word, God's heart, God's attitude, that is completely dependable. But it won't always look in the way that people want it to. Will they follow, will God's ways follow what we want or expect? David, Daniel in the lion's den. Will faith always be what we expect or understand? Joseph? No, for sure not, because we're dealing with God. God says, my ways. I'd like to read that. I like that verse, Isaiah 55. If I can find it quick. Can somebody quote it? Or I'm here, actually. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, and neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. So often we get lost in our lateral thinking and forget that it's God we're dealing with. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, pretty high, so are my ways higher than your ways. Think of these two guys and me. It's very hard for them to comprehend me and understand that I'm going to school tomorrow and what I'm processing and what I'm dealing with. They have a hard time dealing or understanding that. For as my ways are higher than the earth, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. That's God, and that's us. So when we believe God, it is the most rational thing we can do. The viewpoint of others or our own smallness does nothing to his truth. God cannot change. God cannot lie. God is the I am, constant, complete, self-sufficient, all-powerful God. So is God egotistical? No, God is not egotistical. God simply operates in truth. When he says, all glory is mine, it's simply true statement, and God cannot lie. He couldn't give his glory to anyone else or have people share it because it's not theirs. The power isn't theirs. The ego isn't theirs. God is God. We are very small, finite men and women. It would be wrong, false information, incorrect, to apply any of God's attributes to anything else or anyone else. So it's simply true, and God is acknowledging that truth, and the psalmist is acknowledging that truth. Paul is acknowledging that truth, and Jesus acknowledged that truth. So thinking of Jesus' life, Jesus was very, very, very careful to honor God. I do nothing but what my Father tells me. I say nothing but what my Father tells me. All glory goes to God. He simply deflected the glory that people wanted to give him, and even Jesus went upward with it completely. He was almost, I don't want to say it disrespectfully, but he was almost obsessive about it, that Jesus took no glory for himself. He took it and directed it upwards every single time. John 3 is a good example of that. I did that in a message a while back, where John 3, a passage we all know, but the language is very unique. He says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Now this is Jesus speaking, and he's talking in the third person. The gift was Jesus. The gift was talking, if I can say it that way. God sent not his, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. So the gift was saying, he didn't say, I'm here, God sent me, none of that glory vacuuming. He didn't even talk about himself in the process. He said, look to God who gave you a gift, while the gift was talking. It's an amazing concept, and he went through that whole thing there, talking of God and his honor and his glory. So man, contrary to all reason, sense, truth, righteousness, is born and lives, unless salvaged by God, with a heart that will rebel and say, I decide, I own, I control my life. But God didn't make us for that. God made the world. The reality is that God made birch trees, he made leather, he made medium blue color, he made smoke smell, he made your mom's hug, he made friction, he made snow, he made Dalmatians, he made hail, he made maple syrup, he made dandelions, he made wool, he made the smell of apple pie, he made memories, he made coal, he made fire, he made laughter, he made seasons, he made wind, he made fingerprints, he made time, he made light, he made language, he made thought, he made families, he made the magnetic pole from the North Pole, he made whispers, he made blood vessels, he made glass, he made barley, he made deserts, he made waterfalls, he made electricity, he made the atom, he made Mars, he made thunder, he made music, he made music to be able to clash, to harmonize. He made orange, he made sandpaper, he made poetry, he made 5-year-olds, he made bananas, he made owls, he made eyes. God made all of it, and God made men. To do what? God made man in his own image. This is the whole point of where I'm going. So God made man in his image. God made men, why? To love. God made men to bless. God made men to share. These are all parts of God that he loans us, that he allows us to work with. God made men to help. God made men to serve. God made men to be humble. God made men to give. God made men to nurture. God made men to replenish. God made men to protect. God made men to honor. God made men to worship. And God made men to fellowship. So that's God's design. When he put man in the garden, that's what he was after. He was not after a fight. He was not after rebellion. He was not after corruption. He was not after arguing. God wanted love, fellowship, blessing, help, serving, protecting. What he is, he wanted us to do, and we get to do that. So I heard a message when I was maybe 20, why missions? The speaker was saying, why missions? Why are the missions existent in the world? Why are we Christian evangelists? And the answer, long story short, is because worship doesn't exist. So when we look to men for them to be saved, yes, we want men to be saved, but the whole overarching plan is man needs to come under God's order again and worship him rightly for who God is. Their salvation, hell, it's all very real, very valid. But why missions at the core is because worship isn't happening. So when we're trying to reach somebody on the street, we want to reconcile them to God, to God's order, for them to come under God's hand and under God's protection, both, to bring the right order to the planet again, for God's sake, for God's glory. So there's a message in itself there, the purpose of missions and why missions, and they have slightly different outworking, but that's the point, because worship is missing. We have missions. We need missions to draw men back to their God. So God has all authority. There's nothing under him that will ever question him. There's nothing over him. Everything in God's world needs to say, yes, Lord, just like Paul did. Paul, his response was classic, that we need to have in our heart constantly, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? That is the response of man to God. Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? How can I serve you? How can I love you? What do you want from me? There's no in a Christian to God. None. The world does not say no to God. It is wrong to do that. And I don't mean morally wrong, rebellious wrong. I just mean factually wrong. And for me, I want to make that difference, because sometimes we can get condemned. But when we understand the big picture, how it actually is, and what our actual natural place is under God, it's a beautiful thing. The fight goes out. It's a heart that says, yes, Lord, to his assessment of our wicked heart, to his assessment of our corruption, to his assessment of our rebellion. Everybody, planet from Adam to the end. His assessment of our inherent pride. Satan fell because of pride. It's one of the most serious things that has ramifications everywhere. When Satan said, I will be like the Most High God. So a heart that has not learned to bow has not begun. In light of who God is and who we are, a heart that has not learned to bow has not begun. It is just that simple. Before God, there is no, there's no pushback. And we grow. I understand that. That's not what I'm saying. We learn to deal with ourselves and give up. But if in our heart is a stiff-necked heart that has not learned to bow, we've not begun, because you can't start without that. A heart that says, yes, Lord. And with that comes understanding that order. And if God puts something over me, I need to, in light of God's order, come under that. If I'm over somebody, quote unquote, I need to love them and care for them or protect them, and they need to come under that order. It's just God's world works like that. And if we don't understand it, if we're not able to do that, we basically haven't begun. It's very, very serious. And sometimes we think, would God be as earthy as that? Christianity is, in some places, awfully earthy. The deepest work that God has done in my heart has been in the very nitty-gritty, when I think this is a pretty small deal. But when I did it, it was a major key that unlocked, because I thought it was too ordinary, too small. It's just this, it's just that. But when I did it, that was what God was waiting for, because this is what you're dealing with. The word that I've given you is here. Even things like on purpose honoring my dad, and in some cases repenting for things that I did to the Hutterite preacher system, going back and repenting for things. I didn't think it was a big deal, but when I put myself in proper place, authority-wise, deep things happened in my heart, and my life changed when I started understanding that concept. Making things right where places where I've been rebellious, consciously or subconsciously. So Satan said, I will be like the Most High God. In Romans, we see that they ignore truth, and the end was God gave them over to reprobate mind. They would not submit. Because the truth that they were looking at, they said, no. And most of our world is doing that. They're looking at the world and saying, obviously not created. There's no God out there. And that is just straight rebellion. And the moral decay that we're seeing is people going crazy. I don't know if you've ever been part of a childhood mob. We did that once. We broke some window. There was a cab in the back of our shop that we as boys threw a stone at it. Somebody did it, and the window broke. And something broke in us because we started throwing stones at the cab till all of them were knocked out, all the window panes in the tractor cab. And then we did something else. We're kind of out of control. We started spiraling. Like, we did this, then we do that, then let's do this. And it was just kind of a mob mentality. And what the world is doing now with the gender thing is pure, sheer, flat-out rebellion. They're just an uncontrolled child running against what they know instinctively to be right and true, but they're out of control. It's pitiful and destructive. So we're not entering that world. We're simply looking at God and saying, God, what is your world? And whatever cost it has, whatever happens, we take God's viewpoint. So every man, woman, and child rightly will bow before this God at some point. It just is. Everyone will bow. And the deeper we bow, the truer we bow, the better it is for us. So I'd just like to read one more thing before we close. God's ways are beautiful, righteous, and good. And when we come under God's hand, under his control, we harmonize again with his wisdom, his power, his plan, his beauty, his care, his tenderness, his love. It's all there. But try to defy him, God cannot. It would be wrong for him to put up with that. So when people in Revelation try to fight against him, it's like these two gnashing their teeth at me. It's just it can't be done. You can't decide that you're in charge of the universe as far as my world is concerned. It would be wrong for me to admit that. So when people defy God, he has to be true and deal with things as they are. And when man's heart says, you are my God, that's a true statement. And he would love for us to be there. But rebel, that's not a good option. Because God is God in his heaven. So I'd like to read Psalm 5 in closing. It's a wonderful psalm. And there's strength there that is mind-stretching and comfort. Psalm 5 in closing. If you have your Bible, read it with me. I think that's the one I wanted. Give ear to my words, O Lord. In the first verse, O Lord, is chosen, specific, on purpose language. Give ear to my words, O Lord. And it's not a name, that is a position. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For unto thee will I pray. My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. Again, it's not a name. He's not saying Jason or Margaret. This is a title, a position, a place. In the morning I will direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, nor shall evil dwell with thee. God has no pleasure with wickedness. It's wrong. It's out of order. It's away from what he wants, from his good design. Foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest the workers of iniquity, because they mess with what his good order is, his perfect righteousness. So it's beyond a moral issue, is what I'm trying to say. They shall destroy them that speak leasing. I didn't look that up, sorry. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy. And in thy fear will I worship towards thy holy temple. So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. I will worship towards thy holy temple. Lead me, O Lord. Again, a place, not a name. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness, because of mine enemies make way straight before my face. We have many enemies. Many have achieved those being ourselves. We're often our own worst enemy. But God deliver us from ourselves. For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre, and they flatter with their tongue. Destroy thou them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. This is talking of people that want to draw him away from God and want to destroy him. And he's casting his hope on God. So he's not vengeful and mean and wicked. He's simply saying, take the barriers that are keeping me from you. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee, for thou, O Lord, will bless the righteous. Oh, but let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee, for thou, Lord, will bless the righteous. For thou, Lord, when we come under and in his hand, will bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield. God help us to be godlike. It is an endeavor that we'll ever be trying, ever straining for, ever reaching, ever be hindered with, but let us push. It's beautiful.